Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're tuning in from, and welcome to the Boring Weekly, the community call that's focused on your favorite project, BoringDAO. My name is Whipper, and I'm a crypto enthusiast and a BoringDAO community volunteer, and it's our pleasure to host Bancor with us today. We have an exciting call lined up for everyone, which will be jam-packed with good discussions from OGs in the space, insights and new product synergies, and future updates from two of the best projects in the DeFi space. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here today. A couple of reminders before we get started. Please keep your mic muted unless you're speaking. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand so we can bring you up on stage. Our open to the public Q&A section will run at the end of the call, and a quick reminder that we'll be closing the call with a 5,000 Boring token raffle giveaway to one lucky listener. So please stay tuned to the end. On the agenda today, we have team introductions, deep dive into Bancor, team announcements and current developments, upcoming updates from both teams, followed by our Q&A section, followed by the end of the call, which will end with our raffle. So please sit back and relax. With that, I'd like to kick things off with our team introductions. Let's start with Nate from Bancor. Can you please start us off with an introduction into Bancor, who you are, and how you got into this space?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much for hosting us today. Really excited to be on. I've been working on Bancor since about late 2017, early 2018. Started getting interested in Ethereum in early 2017. Before that was actually started my career as a financial journalist, went back to school to learn some coding and worked on a number of mobile startups, and then eventually got very interested in crypto and stumbled upon Bancor. Bancor is a decentralized liquidity protocol, sort of like a DEX. It is built on something called automated market makers, or AMMs. Bancor deployed the first AMM on the blockchain in 2017. And since then, we've really been working hard on the primitive. Our latest version solves what we think are some of the core issues with first generation AMMs. We offer single token exposure and impermanent loss protection to liquidity providers, and that's really what and we can dig into what those features mean for users later on. But that is the sort of high level. On Bancor, lastly, I focus mostly on marketing, communications, business development, and partnerships.
Thanks, Nate. What about you, Mark? Do you want to give us an introduction to who you are, how you sort of got into crypto?
Yeah, for sure. I don't come from the finance world. I was a research scientist for 14 years. My specialization in that previous life was organic chemistry. So I worked on a bunch of different things, molecular probes, new sensing devices, some nanotechnology stuff, total synthesis, some immunology, that sort of thing. And in 2020, I had a research grant to go to the Max Planck Institute for colloids and surfaces in Germany. And I was meant to complete a leg of work there under the supervision of Peter Seeberger. And shortly before my flight was due to leave Australia, the pandemic hit and Australia closed its borders. And so I was kind of trapped inside the country with very little to do. And so I kind of spent my time, I think as many others in my position did, exploring new opportunities. And this was kind of leading into DeFi summer. And I became really interested in automatic market makers. And I spent a bunch of time exploring a couple of different protocols. I was a community member for, I was an active community participant in a bunch of these different projects. But then eventually sort of rested on Bancor as having the cleanest and easiest to articulate value proposition for users and for token holders. I also think that the philosophy, the ethos that Bancor is founded on was the one that resonated with me the most, and so this is kind of where I settled down. I started working on a couple of different proposals, and then eventually started collaborating with the Bancor founders on new DeFi products. One of them was a flexible credit system that's free from liquidation risk and interest rates. And that became the Bancor Vortex, which is also a part of our deflationary mechanics. And so shortly after getting that proposal out of the door, I was offered a full-time position continuing to research these kinds of economic games for Bancor. And so I'm continuing that today. I'm now the head of research here, and I'm intimately involved with the design and functioning of the protocol. And yeah, I think that's probably enough for me.
That's perfect. We definitely have a lot to talk about, and I'm super excited to have you guys here with us today. I just want to quickly mention that I do see some guests coming in from the Bancor community. Dwayne, let me just switch it to you real fast here. Maybe you can give an introduction into BoringDAO and what BoringDAO is, and perhaps a little bit of background of yourself so that people can get a little bit acquainted with you.
Yeah, sure. I'll take the mic. Oh, hi guys. This is Dwayne from BoringDAO. I'm the co-founder of BoringDAO, and I entered the crypto business in the early 2020 while I was doing my postgraduate study at home, and because the pandemic. So I think I remember that I joined the business right before 12th March 2020 when America stock market circus broke down and the BTC touched $3,800. And the reason why I chose crypto is because, well, firstly, is because of the profit, and then I realized that this is way more. This is way more, and is way interesting than what I was studying at school. And then I turned to a crypto business and really focused on developing the industry. Well, I was hoping I can do some contribution to the industry. And BoringDAO is let's do a introduction on BoringDAO then. So BoringDAO is a one-stop cross-chain services provider. So we support all type of cross-chain services, and that includes BTC, LTC, Dogecoin to Ethereum, and Ethereum to BSC, OKChain, Polygon, Near, Harmony. Right now, we have two major products running, and that's namely O tokens and O Portal. So O Portal refers to O BTC, O Litecoin, and O Doge, and they are BTC, Litecoin, Dogecoin's pegged token. And currently, O BTC is the fifth largest Bitcoin pegged token on the market. And our second product is O Portal, and this is also our latest product. O Portal is the tool that connects all the blockchains together and allow crypto coins flows between chains. That'll be all.
Thanks, Dwayne. So for those that are listening with us today, I know that Nate touched upon this a little bit, but I feel like the DeFi community owes a lot to Bancor, and we're going to get into the next segment. And the reason is, so for those of us that have been around long enough, Bancor is actually the first DeFi project to introduce this AMM that we're so familiar with within the crypto space. I'm curious if you guys can talk to us about, like, how did this happen? Take us back to the time before AMMs actually launched or even existed.
Sure. Well, basically, Bancor existed as a community currency project that wasn't built on blockchain. It was a solution that tried to allow different local communities to use the kind of goods in their communities to sort of trade and get different services. So, for instance, someone who's a hairstylist can trade their time for babysitting services within a community. And these pilots, the idea was to use a common currency and that was just online and not tied to the blockchain. And deploy these in currencies around the communities around the world. There were some in the U.S., in Israel, even in South America. And the issue that was typically found is that these pilots would be deployed, but because there was no liquidity to currencies outside the community, usage would really drop off. There would be a spike and then usage would drop off. And so the founders were very interested in connecting different currencies and allowing each currency to know its value programmatically. Once blockchain came around, it kind of allowed for the sort of perfect decentralized money system to support this idea, and was really designed, and Bancor designed itself to sort of serve this long tail of community currencies and small cap currencies. These types of currencies aren't typically the type that you can get listed on major exchanges. If you take it to the crypto world, when you launch a brand new project, if there's not an immediate buyer and seller available, then the currency really loses its utility. And so Bancor designed a system that allowed currencies to be interchangeable using a smart contract that holds an amount of that currency that you can always buy and sell against. You don't need an order book or anything like that to have a buyer or seller on the other end of the trade. And so the founders deployed this primitive on the blockchain in late 2016. Went through quite a few hackathons and projects, and then ultimately started discussing the concept of an automated market maker, what is known today as a liquidity pool, in early 2017. I think it was actually at Ethereum Community Conference in Paris, which just happened a few weeks ago. So that would probably be the 5th anniversary of it. In late June 2017, the network was deployed with a series of these automated market maker smart contracts. And since then, in the first year, I'd say, before we saw any sort of clones or other networks deployed with AMMs, the protocol had done about $1 billion in trade volume. Now today, AMM protocols and AMMs in general are doing billions in volume per day, competing with centralized exchanges and order book based exchanges. So have really exploded in recent years. But that's really the history of it, that the AMMs were created in Bancor's case in order to fill this need where brand new currencies could not get access to immediate liquidity, and AMMs and smart contracts really were used to sort of solve that issue. So that's the kind of the history.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm going to go out and just say it like I feel like it is, but I really feel like there's pretty much a lot of the innovation that's being used today within the DeFi space is actually coming from Bancor. And one of the most talked about differences between the typical AMMs and the AMMs that are available, let's just say, the typical ones on Uniswap, is this idea of impermanent loss protection. Maybe you can start us off to some of our newer listeners, what impermanent loss is, and then how does Bancor offer impermanent loss protection to LP providers?
All right, so it looks like Nate has been kicked off the stage, so I'm happy to take this question for now. So impermanent loss is an effect that a liquidity provider might be exposed to. And it has to do with the fact that if you provide, let's say, $100 in total liquidity, and this might be a mixture of 2 or more different tokens, depending on which AMM you're using. So for example, if we consider something like Uniswap or SushiSwap, you would be providing liquidity with simultaneously Ethereum and BoringDAO tokens at the same time. And so let's say, you provide $100 worth of that, and then you know that the BoringDAO token went, 10x or something like that. And so you'd think, okay, great. So with the $100 that I provided, I know $50 worth of that was BoringDAO. And if that went 100x, then that $50 that I provided is now worth, $5,000. And so it stands to reason that I now have $5,050 worth of value. And so when I try and withdraw that from Uniswap or SushiSwap, then that's the amount of money that I'm going to have. Unfortunately, when you do withdraw your liquidity, you'll see that you'll have significantly less than that if Ethereum didn't rise at the same rate as BoringDAO did. And that delta, that difference in value between what you thought you should have and what you actually get, is called impermanent loss. The word impermanent in there is kind of a misnomer, but it's still helpful. And the reason is that these losses can revert if the price of BoringDAO then comes back to meet Ethereum or the other way around. And so those losses, they're only realized at the time that you withdraw, but in general, they tend to stick around. And so, yeah, that difference between the values of just holding the tokens and not doing anything with them, and the value that you get back after providing liquidity with them, that difference is what we call the impermanent loss. So on Bancor, it's slightly different. We have an elastic BNT supply model that allows for two major differences to be introduced compared to the status quo. One is that rather than being forced to provide liquidity with both tokens simultaneously, you can instead just provide liquidity with one token. So if you only want to hold Boring, you can do that. And that means that you don't have to sell some of it in order to buy Ethereum, in order to rebalance your portfolio for the purposes of providing liquidity. So Bancor, it alleviates that aspect of needing to take on exposure to multiple tokens simultaneously. And similarly, but separately, we also provide a mechanism for what's called impermanent loss insurance. And this means that whatever the value is that you think you should be withdrawing at some point in the future, meaning that if you provided, $1 of BoringDAO and BoringDAO goes 100x, you're expecting to withdraw $100 worth of material, and so that is exactly what Bancor will let you withdraw. Depending on exactly what the price action is, some of that reimbursement might be subsidized by BNT tokens, depending on what the health of the pool is in general. But if you're not a mega whale, in general, the protocol will give you your withdrawal entirely in the token that you provided. So if you're providing BoringDAO, and you provide 100 of them, no matter what happens at some point in the future, you're going to be able to withdraw 100 BoringDAO worth of value, and usually it will be entirely in the BoringDAO token itself. So those are really the two major differences between Bancor and the AMMs that we are competing with.
Thanks, Mark. I fully appreciate all the innovation that's coming out of Bancor, but I'm just curious on your take. It almost feels like Bancor is not paid enough respect from the DeFi community. I'm just curious if either one of you can speak a little bit about that, because it seems like there's all this innovation coming out, and I feel like should be more respect to be paid. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think Nate will probably have a little bit to say about this, but I know the story well. So basically, when the BNT token was first launched and the AMM was first brought to Ethereum, you have to remember that back in 2017, it was kind of controversial to have a token associated with your project. The Ethereum Foundation was still very much of the conviction that ETH should be able to perform every function that any of these new tokens that are being created are designed for. And so the Ethereum Foundation kind of took issue with the fact that Bancor had its own token and that it was implementing it in order to power its AMM model. because it felt that Ethereum should be used to power the AMM model. And so, you don't have to take my word for this. There are some very public records from that period where people very closely associated with the Ethereum Foundation and what they wrote in terms of their criticisms of Bancor back then. What's interesting is that their response to that was to offer a grant to a child prodigy, Hayden Adams, who then went on to recreate Bancor's system in the form of Uniswap. And so Uniswap was really the Ethereum Foundation funded version of Bancor, but it was designed to achieve exactly the same thing, but except it didn't have the BNT token inside it, and that was replaced with the Ethereum token. And so for a while, that was, I would say, working pretty well. During the early phases of Bancor, we had legal advice to the effect of, everything needs to be KYC'd. All of the projects and all of the users that come to use the protocol, we need to have a relationship with them and know who they are. It was very much performing like a regulated centralized exchange was. And when Uniswap sort of opened its doors to users and started saying things like, permissionless and anonymous and all of that kind of stuff, it really sort of flew in the face of what was the traditional legal understanding at the time. But that also helped to create a precedent that we don't need to be so conservative about how these services are offered and with whom these services can participate with. So we basically rebooted the system, rolled everything out, and we have since grown into a very organic and community oriented project. But yeah, there is still this lingering, let's say, bitter taste from that initial rivalry between Bancor and the Ethereum Foundation and the people connected with it. And I would say that is kind of why, as you point out, that we may not be paid the sort of respect that maybe we deserve. And that's okay. We're not in it for accolades. We're in it to create the best DeFi products, the simplest and safest DeFi products in the space. And as long as we keep achieving that, then I'm not particularly bothered who does or doesn't pay us, kudos. And in a way, I think that to continue to, it's only Ethereum Foundation, ironically, has become another type of authority that Bancor stands against, in a sense. They're kind of one of the overlords of DeFi, and Bancor is a censorship-resistant protocol. Is now trying to resist the censorship of Ethereum. So that's kind of how I see it, but I think Nate might have a slightly different take on that.
Yeah, I think most of that's pretty in line with my thinking. A lot of this is kind of ancient news. There's so many different flows of users into the crypto and DeFi ecosystem, and a lot of these stories that we think are a big deal are kind of just only a big deal in these kind of tiny little crypto circles and little spheres of crypto Twitter. I would say in the early days I kind of lost a little too much sleep on the recognition of Bancor. I think what Mark said about the sort of anti-token sentiment early in our days, Bancor was held up as sort of the prototypical example of a protocol where a lot of people believed you just don't need a token, and it was sort of almost like seen as like a greedy move to launch a token, that the core developers just wanted to like accrue value from the network. At the time, a lot of people didn't see the value in having a token and how you can really build an amazing community around a token, especially if that token has real utility in the network. Especially with the launch of our V2.1, people really started to see the value of having a token inside, a common reserve token inside AMMs. Without BNT as a reserve token in our pools, we wouldn't be able to protect LPs from impermanent loss. We wouldn't be able to support LPs being able to add and stay exposed to just a single asset, so single-sided exposure. These are really our two key features that differentiate us, and not to mention just all the other benefits in terms of governance, in terms of incentivization, in terms of community building that a token brings. So I think we just received a lot of negative sentiment because we were launched at a time when having a token was viewed as a bad thing. And also, Vitalik, when we showed him the AMM model in late 2016, early 2017, he wanted to see it built with Ethereum in the pools as opposed to a token. And that ultimately led to his funding and the Ethereum Foundation's funding of Uniswap and all the promotion that came with that and still comes with that. That said, I'm totally aligned with Mark. It's not who did it first, it's who does it best. And we think we have the best model currently for LPs to simplify the process of providing liquidity. It's as easy as possible. They're not exposed to this high risk. It's truly a stake and forget experience. And I think we'll continue to build out our differentiating features in our upcoming V3, and we'll continue to really, I think, have the best AMM model in the space. So I'm not losing too much sleep anymore. We'll continue just pushing out the best technology, and the difference between this year and last year and the year before in terms of our acknowledgement is actually like we get way more recognition than we used to. So it's all relative. So I'm quite happy about that, and really happy about the users who do land in our community. I think they're a really great mix and come from all sorts of different fields, and I think our community is super strong as a result. So I'm not too butthurt about it. And I think we'll continue getting the recognition we deserve as we continue pushing out this new tech.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that you guys are doing an absolute fantastic job. And as I mentioned at the, sort of at the beginning of the call, it seems like a lot of the innovation that the day-to-day users in the DeFi space is actually coming out of Bancor. So I'm happy that we're here giving you guys recognition that you guys deserve. I want to talk about the impermanent loss protection, especially because that's something we're going to get a little bit deeper, especially with the whitelisting of Boring. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the requirements, if any, for LPs to be able to have this impermanent loss protection. Is there a time amount? Is there a certain amount that needs to be deposited? Maybe you could sort of walk us through an example of how one actually achieves this LP protection for impermanent loss.
Yeah, absolutely. So the impermanent loss protection isn't awarded to any token. There is a vetting process that the DAO has to perform, and this is absolutely necessary because the insurance mechanism obviously introduces some exploit and security risks, and so we're extremely careful to make sure that the tokens that get onboarded into what we call whitelisted status are associated with teams that we trust and products that have a recognizable use case, a healthy community, and are not obvious deliberate rug pull scams or something else. We also have to make sure that the contracts associated with that project are well prepared, that they're audited, and that there isn't the likelihood of not just a deliberate exploit attempt, but also an accidental one. And so once that process is completed, and at least the vetting process is completed, it then goes to a DAO vote, and it's actually one of the most difficult voting requirements, I think, in any DAO. the community needs to vote in favor at a rate of 66% supermajority. So if you only get a 51% vote in favor, the proposal is actually defeated. We need 2/3 majority for it to pass, and we need a 35% quorum, which means about a third of all of the BNT that's staked on the governor's contract needs to be voting in that proposal for it to be considered legitimate. So it's an extremely rigorous process that goes into onboarding tokens, and as a result, the Bancor DAO has become one of the most active in cryptocurrency. And so, okay, after that process is completed, the pool associated with the token that's completed the vetting process becomes a whitelisted pool. So this is a full protocol upgrade with regards to that specific pool. And the users that are participating in it are then eligible to receive this insurance. And to receive that insurance is relatively simple. You simply stake your BNT or BoringDAO tokens single-sided, and that goes into an effective vesting period. So as long as you maintain that position for at least 100 days, then you are fully insured at the time that you withdraw. You don't have to wait 100 days. Bancor is extremely transparent about the impermanent loss that you've been exposed to during that time. And so it could be that, after 50 days or something, you might want to withdraw. You can actually check to see whether or not you've experienced any impermanent loss and make the decision as to whether you even need the insurance. The insurance isn't binary there. So the way I phrased it just now makes it sound like you don't have any protection at all prior to 100 days and then 100% after 100 days, but that's not true. It's only the first 30 days that you're providing liquidity that you are exposed to impermanent loss entirely. And then from day 30 onwards, you start at a coverage amount of 30% of your IL. And then that increases by 1% every day up to 100 days when you're fully protected. So that you don't have to buy anything, you don't have to do anything. You really just have to participate and be patient, and that is all that is required for you to get the benefit of the impermanent loss protection mechanism.
Thanks, Mark. Dway, maybe you can explain why this is significant for the Boring token holders, LPs, and Boring users in general.
Yeah, sure. So, well, thank you for the history lessons from Mark, and he has explained how AMM works perfectly. And so, as we have addressed, that Bancor can protect LP providers from impermanent loss. So it means that it is really a good news for those super strong diamond hand of Boring, who is worrying about impermanent loss. And we all know how AMM works, and we all are aware that how the price can vary in crypto world. And so that's so one day you're at the moon, and the other day you may end up at the bottom of the ocean. So it's not very difficult to see that the impermanent loss take up 30% of your profit. So with the solution that Bancor offers, the problem is solved, and to Boring wheels, they finally have a place to safely farm without worrying losing any token, and all Bancor require is patience. So that's pretty much all.
Can we talk about or get some insight into the recent co-investment opportunities that Bancor and BoringDAO have engaged? Maybe you guys can break down for us what's at play.
Sure. So during this vetting process that I spoke about, when a token becomes whitelisted, the community then needs to decide how many Boring tokens, or actually how many BNT tokens, more accurately, is the DAO willing to insure, right? So it's similar to an insurance company, maybe think about like State Farm or something. If you're a small business or something and you want to get insured, you might go and talk to the insurance company and say, hey, my business is worth $500,000. Can you please insure me? And the insurance company is like, yeah, sure, we can afford to cover, $500,000 worth of risk. That's not a problem. But then if Apple Computers or something went to an insurance company and said, hey, can you insure my business? It's worth more than $1 trillion. The insurance company might say, well, actually, that's a little bit too much. We can't really afford to cover that much risk. Bancor DAO is very much like an insurance company. In fact, it is an insurance company. And we need to make sure that the risks are effectively managed. And so we define a parameter that's called the co-investment limit, and that decides how much BNT the protocol will create in order to support the liquidity providers in that pool. So let's say that, for example, there's a 10,000 BNT minting limit or co-investment limit on the BoringDAO pool. What does that mean? That means that users can contribute BoringDAO tokens single-sided, and the protocol will mint up to 10,000 BNT in order to support the other side of the pool. And so this defines sort of the capacity or single-sided staking space in that pool. And this parameter is 100% under the control of the DAO. So one of the things that we often have to vote on, and I encourage you to go to our snapshot page and have a look at all the proposals there. You'll see that this is part of the routine maintenance of the protocol, is that we constantly readjust, usually in the up direction, how much BNT we make available to support each of the pools. And that also means that we decide how deep we're willing to let that pool get, and therefore how much insurance risk the protocol takes on. So I think I don't have the proposal up in front of me, but for BoringDAO, I think we first whitelisted the Boar token, and now we're whitelisting Boring. And the co-investment limit is a part of that whitelisting process. So when it is accepted into the whitelist, it will have a certain protocol co-investment limit, which represents the Bancor DAO's level of risk exposure that it's willing to take onto that token.
Thanks, Mark. Can you guys talk a little bit about how token holders of BoringDAO can utilize Bancor AMM to maximize their income as an LP depositor? Maybe you can walk us through a typical example.
Nate, would you like to take this one?
Sure. So as Mark and as we mentioned, a user would holding in Boring would go to Bancor.network and look for the Boring liquidity pool. So if you wanted to get yield on your Boring, I think this is probably the first step to acclimate yourself with the protocol. So you would go and click earn, and in the earn tab you would see this list of pools, and select the Boring pool, select add liquidity. In the initial drop-down list, even before adding liquidity, you can look at what your potential returns might be on the pool. So there's two columns in particular you'd be interested in looking at. The first is the rewards column. It's the second column. And that tells you how much rewards in BNT, liquidity mining, is being dropped on the pool. And you can see two values there. One, if you were to deposit a single-sided BNT into that pool, you would see a particular APR from BNT mining rewards. And then below that, you could see the potential rewards you would get if you deposited Boring, single-sided Boring, in the pool. Then in the far column, and still in that pool page, if you look at the APR, this is the fees or the APR that you would generate from trading fees that are generated. So remember, each Boring trade that's processed by the Bancor network, a percentage of that trade is deposited back into the pool, and 100% of that trading fees is is then earned by the LPs on the pool. So in that APR column, you can see the APR specifically from trading fees. And if you want to get the total APR that you can earn from the pool, just add the rewards percentage with the trading fee percentage. So at that stage, you're ready to deposit liquidity, connect your wallet. We support numerous wallets. One of the most popular to use is MetaMask. So if you have your Boring or your ETH in your MetaMask, another is Coinbase wallet, and there's a number of wallets in the dropdown once you connect your wallet. And then from there, it's quite simple. Just deposit your Boring tokens to determine how much you want to add, and submit the transaction, confirm it. After completing the transaction, you'll be directed to your portfolio within Bancor. And this is where you can track the value of each one of your pool positions. So let's say you were to deposit more Boring or BNT into that pool, that would open up a brand new position on that pool. And now each of these positions over time accrues impermanent loss insurance. So you start to accrue the insurance from day one, but there's a vesting, and you and the vesting for the insurance starts at day 30. So at day 30, you will be able to utilize some of that insurance. It'll start at 30% and increase by 1% per day. So after 100 days in the pool is when you're fully protected 100% from impermanent loss. So that's any impermanent loss that occurs in that first 100 days or any time thereafter. And when you arrive in this portfolio page after you've staked your liquidity, there's a timer all the way on the right where you can see the sort of countdown of how long until you've accrued 100% impermanent loss insurance. And just to clarify, you can withdraw your liquidity from the pool at any time. There's no lock. It's not like you're locked in the pool for 100 days. But if you were to withdraw after, let's say, 40 days or after 30 days, you would just get a percentage of your impermanent loss covered. So after 40 days, 40%. It's only after that 100 days that you're eligible to get 100% of your impermanent loss covered. Anyways, in this portfolio screen, you can track that insurance, how it is accruing over time. You can see how many BNT rewards you've generated on this position, the swap fees, and then you'll see in aggregation, if you have multiple stakes in pools, you'll see a total aggregate value of your pool positions, including the rewards. And we also break out the amount of rewards that you've accrued thus far. Now, when you earn rewards, you have two choices. You can either withdraw them from the pool, or you can restake them inside the pool. And this is something that you can do from the portfolio screen. And effectively, this is compounding your yield. So you're earning the BNT rewards, and then you're redepositing it back into the pool. And this BNT will then generate trading fees and also additional BNT rewards. And if you leave them outside the pool, they're not generating those fees and rewards. Now, the fees itself that you accrue are auto compounding, so they're just automatically redeposited into the pool, but the fees themselves need to be restaked at this stage. So that is a general walkthrough. We have a bunch of tutorials and videos. Can drop a link in the chat for some videos that we've done that go over the process. That is effectively how to do it. In terms of optimizing your yield, I think that's a matter of just keeping an eye on your rewards and restaking during opportune times. You'll want to consider the gas costs involved during high congestion times in the Ethereum network. Typically, the gas costs are obviously a little bit higher, so pick those times. We know some people who kind of wake up in odd hours and restake during those times to keep the gas costs particularly low. And that pretty much sums up the whole process, how it works.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Nate, we'll take you up on that. Maybe you can drop a link, and I invite everyone in the audience that's here from Boring to join Discord or Telegram of Bancor, so that if you do have any questions regarding this amazing announcement, you can get all of the help that you need. Dway, I want to talk a little bit about the recently announced USDT from BSC to OKX chain option that is now available. Could you talk a little bit about the importance of this milestone and how this will benefit users of BoringDAO in general?
Yeah, sure. So this is called USTD two-way bridge, and it belongs to our all portal program. And now it's officially come online now. We support USDT cross-chain between BSC to OK chain and another way around, of course. And we recently have teamed up with the K-swap on OK chain. So that's another choice
Dway,
for our
sorry,
boring token holders. And well, I can promise you that it's just the beginning. Yeah, and the this will bring new.
hey guys, sorry to interrupt and cut in. I'm not sure if it's my internet that's giving me issues or if it's Dway's. Nate or Mark, maybe you can comment. Is it my internet or was he coming in and out there?
I can't hear him either.
I think Leo is Leo.
I'm also having issues hearing the way.
Oh, I think
Dway,
it's
it might be your internet. Maybe you could just start just from the beginning because you got cut out a little bit there, and I just want to make sure that everyone hears the announcement officially and correctly.
yeah, sure. So this is called the USTD two-way bridge. I propose USTD cross-chain between BSC and OK. So, and recently we have teamed up with K-swap on OK chain. So that's another choice for our boring token holders. And it's just a beginning. So we will extend our two-way bridge. And yeah, that's the recent big announcement.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dway. I want to talk a little bit about some upcoming updates or some things that either team is excited about. Maybe we'll start with Bancor. What exciting news or events do you want to share, not only with the Bancor community with us today, but as well as Boring? Is there anything sort of coming up that users could look forward to? I think you might have mentioned there's a V3 in the works. Anything worthwhile mentioning?
Yep. Our V3 is, as most Bancorians on the call know, is very much in development at this stage. We are expecting to be able to announce more information on the exact features fairly soon. The real development is focused on really making the DeFi experience and LPing experience even more simple. We think we have the simple and easiest product in the market now too, and it'll just get easier and easier in terms of earning passive yield, making sure that your tokens staked are generating as high an APR as possible, and that not requiring really any math to do or maintenance or any middlemen in the equation. So V3 we'll also have a brand new kind of piece that we're building into the AMM that we haven't seen tried so far in the industry. We think it's completely novel, and we think it will further allow us to kind of distinguish ourselves in a very competitive market. So I think once again we're kind of reinventing the decentralized liquidity game, and we're quite excited to deploy this third version. It's the largest and most significant version yet. So that is really what's on our radar. We've given some kind of breadcrumbs in a lot of our communications, but excited to really tell the users about the entire feature set fairly soon.
That sounds super exciting, and I'm sure you guys will definitely not disappoint. Usually, any innovation that comes out of Bancor is super, super cool. So I'm sure everyone is waiting anxiously for that to come out. Dwayne, what about
If
you? Is
anyone
there
is,
anything?
sorry, yeah,
What's
I was going
that?
to say, if anyone is wants to learn a little bit more about where our head is at for what the Bancor's version 3 is going to look like. I was one of the keynote speakers at Chainlink's SmartCon conference, which concluded just yesterday. And there was a live stream. It was live streamed and recorded to YouTube. And during the last sort of 10 minutes of that talk, I did discuss a little bit about some of the philosophy behind V3. And so if anyone wants to check that out or is looking to do their own research or whatever, I strongly recommend that is a resource. Is probably the most details we've ever leaked about V3.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Wait, what about you? What's upcoming that you're super excited about that we can share with not only BoringDAO, but some of our users here that are joining us today with Bancor?
Yeah, there's a big announcement, but before that, is it me or like Mark really so next big thing is another two-way bridge and from BSC to Polygon. And we just make the decision today, and it's gonna come online real quick. And well, our USTD two-way bridge technically support all the cross chain between EVM compatible chains. So I don't expect too long until we support like BSC from Polygon or Polygon to OK chain. Of course, we are finance, so that's BitFi, and I have addressed many times we are capable of connecting all the chains with our Portal program. So now we have 4 chains connected. So that's Ethereum, BSC, Polygon, and now we have OK chain with us. So, well, as I have said, I don't expect too long until we see Near, Harmony, and Avalanche join the Portal family. Yeah, that'll be all. Thank you.
Yeah, that's amazing, Dwayne. Obviously, some exciting things happening and a lot of movement happening here at BoringDAO. That's amazing. I'd like to open up the conversation to anyone in the audience. We've learned so much about both of these amazing projects. If anyone has any questions, I invite you to raise your hand so we can bring you up on stage. And while we're waiting, maybe we'll just go back to Bancor a little bit and dig a little bit deeper since we have some time here. So if anyone does have a question, please raise your hand and I will bring you up on stage. But in the meantime, maybe the guys from Bancor could speak a little bit about, so how do you guys generally differentiate yourself from other DeFi projects that, have similar product offerings, like other AMMs? I don't know, I'll just throw out from like Sushi or Uniswap. I know that you talked about obviously the impermanent loss, but is there anything else that sort of sets you guys apart that's worthwhile mentioning?
Yeah, I think if I was to try and characterize Bancor's approach to its user base, it is trying to care for it. I think, right? To us, liquidity providers aren't just an expendable commodity. A lot of the features that we've built in, right, single-sided staking and impermanent loss protection, it is to make sure that if you are providing liquidity, that you are benefiting from that, right? That you are rewarded for your contribution to the DeFi economy. We want our liquidity providers to be happy and confident and feel safe in the decisions that they've made. I think with some of our competitors, and I don't want to mention any by name because I'm not interested in slandering any other protocols in particular. In general, I'm bullish on all of DeFi, and I think all of these DeFi protocols, our competitors included, provide real value, and I don't want to say anything bad about any of them. But would say that if I had a specific criticism of, let's just call it the status quo, it is that liquidity providers are treated as being, sort of less than important, right? That they are like a serf in that system, and that the protocol and or its token holders should feel justified in extracting value from them at the cost of the liquidity providers, personal savings in many cases. And so I think Bancor stands in opposition to that, right? We say that is not an attitude that we are prepared to tolerate, and that the way that the Bancor protocol is structured is to make sure that everyone gets a fair deal, I think. And I would say if there's anything that sets us apart from the competition, it's that we really do care for liquidity providers, and we want to make sure that they enjoy participating and don't have to stress.
That was well said, Mark.
Thank you.
Again, a reminder to the audience, if you do have any questions, please feel free. We do have a little bit more time to discuss further. If we don't have any questions, I'm happy to ask some on my own, but please feel free to raise your hand so we can bring you up on stage. I'm curious to hear from anyone on stage. There's been a lot of chat.
Yeah, I'm actually quite quite fond of this idea of stake single-sided because well, firstly, the tokens that I own are too precious for sale, so I rather not to just sell sell all my tokens just to make a pairs. So the idea that Bancor has was brilliant to me, and well, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Dwayne. Like the impermanent loss protection was just absolutely revolutionary, and it really helps a lot of the people that want to be long their favorite projects without having to, be exposed to that. And it's amazing. It truly is.
Yeah,
so we have
exactly.
a couple of minutes. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I remember that last time I used I staked single sided was using the alpaca, but that's that's more like borrowing money, so I need to pay the interest. But now with Bancor, I don't need that, and I can keep my USDT in my pocket and just stake all my borrowing into the farm. So that's rather convenient, to be honest. Yeah, that's all I would need to say.
Guys, we did have a question coming in from one of our chats. It is for Bancor. The person would like to know, like, what is the main difference between Bancor V1 and V2?
Yeah, so I just want to clarify quickly before answering that there's Bancor version 1, which was the original AMM, the first AMM ever invented. There was Bancor version 2, which was a very sophisticated, automated system integrated heavily with Chainlink that used price oracles and dynamic weights that we no longer use. And then the current implementation is called Bancor version 2.1. So I think the user probably means what's the difference between Bancor version 1 and Bancor version 2.1, because that's the one they're currently using. And there are many. So for Bancor version 1, it was basically exactly what Uniswap v2 is today. Users were required to provide both tokens to the pair. So there was no single-sided staking, there was no impermanent loss insurance. And it was actually on Bancor version 1 that the concept of impermanent loss started to come to light, right? At the time that the project was released, we didn't even have the word impermanent loss, right? We had no, it just wasn't a part of the conversation yet. So Bancor version 1 was very, compared to AMMs today, was quite primitive, and expectedly so, being the first of its kind. And so with Bancor version 2.1, the ability to stake single-sidedly, the impermanent loss protection, and a couple of other features, not the least of which is the launch of the Bancor DAO. These are all new things that weren't a part of the version 1. And I think Nate might want to weigh in here, but I have a feeling that version 2.1 might have been the first time that we had permissionless pool creation, but I can't be certain of that.
No, permissionless pool creation has been a part of protocol from the beginning.
Okay.
And I think Mark nailed it. V2.1 introduced these two key features: single token exposure and impermanent loss protection. In V1, and the same as in other AMMs, from Sushi to Uniswap to Balancer, just like Bancor V1, you have to provide two tokens, and you're subject to impermanent loss if one of them moons or even goes up, or if either change diverge in price. V2.1 really, the core innovation was protection against that risk and that single token exposure.